Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see what if Issei's heartbreak led him down a different path. Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei. Please Akeno, don't make things harder, the dragon replied without looking at them. He closed his eyes, not wanting to see any of their faces. He questioned if he'll ever be able to again. It did still hurt him to face them, despite his eternal hate for their master. He could feel his gut wrenching and churning from his own thoughts. His entire insides were lit on fire as the guilt filled him. I didn't want this, I really didn't. But after the incident with Rias, I grew scared. I couldn't take the chance of all of you feeling or doing the same. So, I casted everyone out of my heart and closed it off so no one could hurt me again. Until Penemu opened it up again. Drake spoke up. Issei openly ignored him and turned around to look away from the group. His senjutsu allowed him to sense the negative emotions radiating off of them, and his senses were going crazy with the enormous amount. It brought chills to his bones from the anguish flourishing behind him. It felt cold. So very cold to him. Why Issei, he heard Akeno ask. He was surprised she called his name. He was for sure they would have lashed out at him and called him anything other than pleasant. Why push us away? Irina asked next. His childhood friend who he had feelings for since they were kids. It was nothing until recent, but they were feelings nonetheless. Feelings of a best friend who would always be there to protect them. So it really hurt that he couldn't keep that self-promise. It's not your fault, it's mine. I let my fear take control and thought you guys would have similar thoughts to her, he stated, his anger flaring for a bit at the mentioning of a certain redeed. After the incident with that guy, I found out he wasn't an open pervert and was actually very kind to you-know-who. I then assumed she wanted someone who wasn't as much as a perverted idiot as I was and that all of you felt the same, he finished explaining while he hung his head low. Clenching his fist, he still remembered those nights Rias watched over the human and nurtured him back to health. She would always assure him that Issei wouldn't attack him again and that everything would be okay. She even tried convincing herself the same, but Issei knew things would never be okay between them. Sure, afterwards, she left him for good, erasing his memory of their confrontation as well, but the pain was still there for her, and Issei knew she still had some affection towards him. She left emotionally hurt and confused, but her decision was obvious to him. And not knowing of what she said or did to the others of the peerage left him to assume what they thought. Rias would do anything to save her own ass, so why not lie about her expendable rogue pawn? Why not make all of them hate him? Why assume such a thing? You've helped us all when we didn't ask for because you felt it was the right thing to do, Kiba spoke up, trying to add some kind of reason. He respected and cared for the brunette greatly. When he left, the blonde felt he lost a dear friend. A brother, if you will. It hurt, maybe not as much as the girls, but still to a great extent. That's another thing. I helped all of you with your past. Issues she never addressed or tried to help you with. The very same issues that have plagued your minds your whole life. That seems like a pretty good reason for blind love, as some call it, the vanguard said with a monotone. Issei even thought of an answer if any of them said something similar to Kiba. He knew of situations where if someone saved another, that person felt obligated to dedicate their lives to that person. The girls happened to use love and the guys used friendship. But, at the end of the day, it was a cover for the truth. The group was honestly shocked to hear the hybrid say something like that. Now that hit all of them hard as that was something very close to their hearts. Issei. Once again, he rose his hand to stop them from saying anything else. Nothing more could be said at this point. And, honestly, he couldn't take any more. He told them his feelings and whatever consequences followed, he'd deal with later. The fallen angel went to leave, but was surprised when he felt two small hands grab his wrist. He turned back to see Asia. She had teary eyes and the look she gave him made the teen immediately regret his decision. The pain and hurt he saw in her eyes was something he wished he didn't. It made his heart feel like it was being crushed by the heaviest of weights. Someone so innocent and someone who entrusted their life to him. He never wanted to see her make a face like this. But how could he blame her? He was her first friend and promised that he'd always be there for her. Then, he left her and has come back to tell her he doesn't love her. What could he say, what could he do? He was scum. No, he felt worse than scum. Issei-san, she said with a shaky voice. It made the dragon cringe and regret facing her even more. His heart was breaking from the pain he was causing and receiving. It was all Ria's fault, but now he had his wrongs to face. Asia, please, let me go, he said quietly, turning towards the ground. The former nun's grip tightened and she shook her head, trying to hold back the inevitable tears. I can't let you go again, Issei, she stated, before looking up at him with her puffy, red eyes. Why, it will only hurt all of us more. The longer I stay, the more harm I'll do to all of you, Issei said with pain. Just let me go. No, I don't want to. Not again, not anymore, she said firmly, pulling his arm tightly to her chest. The dragon released a sigh, the gut-wrenching pain increasing. Just the look on her face made it so bad to where he couldn't stand the negative emotion surrounding him anymore. He honestly thought he'd gone insane if he stayed much longer. Issei needed to go before he said something that would make things worse. BHHSSSHHH. The black cloud of smoke enveloped Issei and moved back before bursting to show him again. His arm was no longer being held by Asia, and the group of devils in arena were shocked to see that. The blonde looked down at her hands before back at Issei, who gave her a very apologetic look. "I'm sorry, all of you. I just can't do this." His wings burst from his back and he took off at blinding speeds. The burst of wind was the only indication he left and the group stared at where he once was. They felt hurt, upset, misled, and any other negative emotion that could describe their anguish. The man they truly were connected to, the man who helped all of them with the problems they faced since they became a part of Rias' peerage. He left them, again. Even after apologizing, they didn't feel any better. If anything, they felt much worse. The girls' hearts were broken and the males of the group felt like they truly lost a very important friend. Issei, they all thought simultaneously. They also could see the hurt in his eyes and know that he didn't want to do it. It was a painful truth for him to admit and by doing so, it showed he cared. Just a little bit. None of them could blame the dragon hybrid for the way he felt. They took into account that it hadn't been that long since his return. And even with Penemu's efforts, they all knew that it would take a lot more to get the vanguard back to his original self, if that was even possible. He was in pain just as much as everyone else. The only difference was that they were all together and could help one another cope. All he had was Penemu, and even then that may not be enough for the brunette. They experienced heartbreak, but so did he, twice. They couldn't be mad at him, no, their hearts wouldn't allow it. And something told them that he couldn't come to hate them either. After a period of silence, all of them looked up at the presence that entered their senses. On the second floor, they saw a curtain shift and the side of red disappear behind it. All of them exchanged looks before silently nodding their heads. They made their way to the door without a single word, their minds all on the same track. There were things they had to discuss, and the pain and sadness they felt was now going to become their fuel. If they were to move past this, sitting idly by wasn't going to help. If they wanted to help their friend and family, they had to do something. They were hurt and Issei was hurt. They needed to do something to show Issei that he still had friends. Rias fell back onto the bed, her hair falling over her eyes, but they weren't able to hide the tear streaks on her cheeks. It was obvious she had been crying and she couldn't describe the pain that she was feeling in her chest. It had been a very common thing since the day she went to see Issei, and it's only grown as time went on. Ever since the Red Dragon Vanguard yelled at her, the Devil Princess had been in a state of deep depression. Every day her memories and emotions would remind her of the biggest mistake in her life. The day she lost the man she loved and broke his heart, as well as indirectly breaking hers. She even began to miss school due to the situation. It soon began to concern her best friend Sona. The Citri wanted to help her old friend, but Rias made it clear that this was her issue and for the fellow high-class devil to stay out of it. It still worried the fellow heiress, but she respected her friend's wishes and covered for the redeed until the situation was resolved. But, returning to Rias, the princess didn't know what to do next. Her heart was crushed and her will to live, her will to fight, was gone with the hybrid fallen angel dragon. The old Rias, who would take anyone on with no fear, was locked away, and it was all because of the loss of the one she held closest. She wanted to make amends with him. To truly start over and do everything right, but he wouldn't give her the time of day. In fact, he didn't even want to give her a chance at being near him, and that hurt much more. If she could go back in time, she would. If she could change everything and make it right, she most definitely would. If only she could have that second chance. Just as Issei had, she wanted another chance. To be reborn as someone better. Issei, she thought, sounding truly desperate in her own head. The Devil Princess rolled over to her side and clutched a random pillow to her chest. She was in the room where it all started. No one had been in it since that day, and nothing had changed since that night. The same door was destroyed, the same stains were on the bed and in the sheets, and the same pawn pieces laid on the floor. She didn't know why, but something made Rias come in today. It was luck that Issei's parents weren't around as she was forbidden from the room. They at least were kind enough to allow her to stay, but the heiress could tell she was on thin ice with them. And, as much as she didn't want to avoid being reminded, she was drawn to the room, and now she laid on the bed with her depression growing the longer she stayed. Wasn't there something she could do to change it all? To get her adorable, lovable servant back and have things back to how they used to be? It hurt, she wanted it to stop. To have Issei back and tell him she was sorry. That she loved him. That she wanted to spend every waking minute with him. That she wanted to be with him forever. If only she had a second chance. Rias' Gremory, a voice suddenly spoke from behind her. Iridide's eyes widened and she shot up and turned behind her. Who she saw was someone she never expected to see there with her. And of all people, this person truly was one of the last people on her mind. Ophis, she stated quietly. The Ouroboros dragon, in her human form, merely smirked. It oddly fit the normally stoic face of the gothic Lolita girl, but it was gone as soon as it arrived. "Glad you remember me," she said with no emotion. "What do you want?" Rias questioned with caution. She knew of the Infinity Dragon and of how she was the leader of the terrorist group the factions were all fighting against, Cow's Brigade. Ophis moved closer to the Redeed, making sure she looked her right in the eyes. "It's not what I want, devil. It's what you want and desire," she replied, receiving a look of doubt and suspicion in return. Anger soon took the front seat and Rias narrowed her eyes dangerously at the dragon god. "You know nothing about me, Ouroboros," the princess replied heatedly. "Oh, but I do," Ophis stated calmly. She opened her palm and 8 pawn pieces appeared in them, dancing in her palms as they spun in a circle. To be more specific, they were the same pieces that were sprawled on the floor just a few moments ago. Ria's eyes widened and she turned to see the pawn pieces truly were gone from their old position. She immediately turned back with a furious look on her face, a red aura surrounding her frame. "Viv. Those. Back," she growled towards the dragon. Ophis didn't argue and silently returned them to the Redeed. Rias snatched them and held them to her chest, feeling the cold, smooth material against her skin. They used to be so warm, now they were as cold as ice. "See, I'm not here to cause any trouble," Ophis spoke up. Rias focused back on the dragon, who still floated above the bed, just a few feet away from her. "Then why are you here, Ouroboros dragon?" she questioned, casting her fear and depression aside for the situation. This made the little girl smirk and she opened her palm. From her hand, a black snake appeared. It was the same Rias had saw from Kateria back at the meeting of the 3 factions. Her brother told her of the beast and how it connected anyone in possession of it to Ophis's own power. "I've already told you. I want to help you gain back what you've lost," the dragon replied. An image of Issei, before he left, flashed into Ria's mind. The same kind smile and kindred eyes. The way he always flustered around her and asked to touch her opai. She missed that. She clenched her eyes shut and grabbed the side of her head, trying to shake the thought away. "Don't lie to me. I know you only care about yourself and only want to get back what is yours. You wouldn't help me or anyone for that matter," she replied defiantly. Ophis didn't say a word. Instead, she got right into the face of the devil, leaving very little room between them. Usually, that is the case. But this time, our goals coincide, so I decided to be nice for a change, as you mortals call it, the dragon answered monotone. Rias only became more defensive of the dragon's words and leaned back away from those blank gray eyes. "What are you talking about?" the princess asked, still trying to keep an iron shell against the dragon. "It's really simple, Gremory. So pay attention because I'm only saying this once." The Redeed weighed her options before settling for hearing what the little girl had to say. "You want your precious pawn back, Issei Hyoudou. Well, he is also the second biggest thorn in my side, close behind his savior Great Red. I want to rid myself of him so I can defeat Great Red and return to my peaceful dimension." At this revelation, Ria's eyes widened and she was seconds from attacking the dragon god. Weak or not, she would not hear of this plan against her true love. She would still defend him, even if he no longer defended her. That was until Ophis decided to continue. "Although, his death would incite the wrath of a lot of people I'd rather not deal with, especially Great Red who is very attached to the boy. Even I fear the dragon in his enraged state. So, in the end, I've decided," she stated. At this, Rias grew more confused than angry and stuck to raising a brow. "Decided?" she repeated. The dragon nodded. "Yes, I've decided that I shall make you my vanguard," the god announced. Ria's eyes widened and her jaw slackened just slightly. Of all the things she expected to hear, becoming the vanguard of the Ouroboros dragon was nowhere near what she thought. Said dragon could see the look on her face and she grinned, revealing a little of her teeth. It was surprising to say the least. "You're obviously shocked to think I'd say such a thing. But mark my words, Gremory, what I've said is exactly what you heard. I want you to be my trusted bodyguard, if you'd like to call it that," she assured. The Redeed sat on the bed and her mind was scrambled from the reveal. Why would Ophis want her as her vanguard? It wasn't like she was the strongest or smartest in the supernatural world, so why would the dragon god go after her? There were a lot of other powerful candidates. "If you're asking yourself why I chose you, it's because of your connection to Great Red's vanguard, Issei Hyoudou," the petite girl answered. Rias didn't respond and settled for staring. "Do not worry, for I shall give you more than enough power to stand against the boy. He will tremble before you and call you his master, just as he did before." "I see that got your attention," Ophis noted, seeing the look of shock on the Redeed's face. There was some life in those dull blue-green orbs. At least, for now while they were on this topic. "But I shouldn't say," said Rias mumbled to herself, remembering the way the brunette reacted to her when she came to his home. His power was beyond anything she felt and his hate showed no signs of alleviating off of her. How could Ophis promise her something like that when the chances were near zero? Especially when Issei's new destiny was to protect Great Red from the Infinity Dragon. Issei Hyoudou does not hate you as much as he proclaims, Ophis suddenly spoke up. Rias turned to the dragon girl who folded her arms. What did you say? The princess asked. He doesn't hate you like he says. Inside him, there's a part of him that still wants things to go back to the way they used to be. I want to give you that chance to reach that side of him and wake him up from this delusional state Great Red has placed him in, the dragon explained carefully. Rias understood this, and the pain in her heart faded for a small moment. There was a chance to be with Issei again. A chance to receive his love and care again. It was the opportunity she had been looking for. The chance to win Issei back. But what was the cost? There always was one, and something like this wasn't cheap. What do you want, Ophis? There has to be some catch, Rias deduced. Ophis smirked again before her emotionless mask returned a second later. Smart girl. But there is no catch this time, Devil Princess. As long as it gets the boy out of my way and keeps Great Red dormant, I'll give you as much power as you need, Ophis answered with honesty. Rias kept firm eye contact with the dragon, looking for any signs of lie or deceit. It was hard against the unreadable eyes of the emotionless god, so Rias would have to put her faith in her if she accepted. Are you sure Issei feels the way you said? The heiress asked carefully. After a small amount of thinking, Rias concluded that she would take any chance if that meant getting Issei back. Once Ophis nodded her head, Rias released a sigh before extending her hand to the dragon. Fine, you've got a deal. I'll be your vanguard. Just make sure I get my chance alone with him, the princess finally relented. She still didn't know if she was making the right choice, but it was her only chance of seeing Issei and explaining herself to him. Ophis reached out and placed her small hand inside the redeeds. Gripping it, a purple light shined between their palms. A black snake then appeared and coiled up both of their arms, its head facing Rias, the purple eyes looking directly into hers. Don't worry, I'll be sure to. Issei made his way down the hall, his head low and his spirits down. Since he faced everyone, he's found himself struggling emotionally. It was hard facing them again and getting everything off of his chest. It was much harder seeing their broken hearts and pain-filled expressions after he told them everything. He began to question if his choices was the right ones. It was as if he was unconsciously arguing with himself over the entire situation. Was it right to abandon them just because of Rias? Everything alright, partner? Drake asked. Issei only sighed as he rubbed his aching head. I honestly don't know anymore, Drake. Was it worth leaving them just because of Rias? The Redeed asked. That's not something I can really answer. Rias' Gremory hurt you, and that alone makes me hate her because you're someone I actually am fond of. However, the others didn't, yet they are a part of her peerage, so it causes a small bit of suspicion to form at the back of my mind. You really think they'd betray me too? The dragon asked with a hint of fear. Like I said, I wouldn't know. All I can say is that you stay careful if you come around them again. The red dragon warned. Alright. Thanks, Drake. Issei stopped mid-sentence as he felt a new presence enter his senses. The feeling was familiar, and the amount of power surging only made him much more sure of who it was. The hybrid leapt backwards just as a large spatial tear opened up where he once stood. Boosted G. Before he could finish calling forth his sacred gear, a black hand reached out from the rip. Issei dodged it before using his claws to try and tear through the hand. Much to his ire, the attack phased through it like nothing. Clicking his teeth, the dragon leapt back as the hand slammed into the ground. Wood chips flew from the floor as it caved in from the attack, showing the hand to be solid. This is going to be troublesome. Drake, any ideas? Issei asked. It might be weak to magical attacks. Issei nodded his head before taking a deep breath. Vuos. Throwing his head forward, Issei released a torrent of flames that covered the entire hall, allowing no room for the hand to dodge. However, the hand continued through the flames with no signs of injuries. Alright then, try this. Issei shouted as he fired a plethora of light needles. The attack struck the hand and actually stabbed into the creature as the hand was thrown back by the large number and force. Issei grinned, discovering the hand's weakness to light-based attacks. Just as he was about to follow up, another hand grabbed his shoulder, shocking the brunette. He spun around and found himself face to face with the Ouroboros dragon, Ophis. She rose her hand, the feeling of magic forming into it, alerting Issei that she was about to attack. Damn it, it was just a distraction. He realized, quickly trying to counter the sudden ambush. Come with me, Ophis said in her monotone. In an instant, Issei found himself moved from one place to another. By the time his mind could catch up, he was somewhere dark with no signs of direction anywhere. It was very familiar to the place Great Red always brought him to talk or train, but the vibe surrounding it was much different, much colder. A voice spoke up from behind him. The boy froze as the voice was all too familiar, sending high signals that the person behind him was someone he knew all too well. However, the same voice was different somehow. It was much darker and much more grim. The brunette turned slowly and his eyes widened at what he saw. "Rias," he stated in shock. He was surprised to see her there with him. He questioned how she got there and why she was there in the first place. But, just before he could, he noticed her appearance, and his breath was taken away at the sudden change from the Devil Princess's usual attire. Heartbreak stood behind him, but she wasn't the same as she used to be. She now wore dark violet armor that looked fit for some evil overlord in a video game. Her chest plate was formed to fit with spikes on the shoulders. Her leggings were thick with boots that were shaped into 3 dragon claws. She had gauntlets with 4 claws, each sharpened for shredding. And a helmet sat on her head, her hair tied into a ponytail, shaped into the form of a grotesque snake's mouth. "Issei, I've come to fix everything," Rias said in a tone that betrayed her usual self. The hybrid heard it easily and narrowed his eyes, suspicious of the odd words and the way she spoke. Looking closely, Issei noticed Ria's eyes void of the usual light they had within them. They were blank blazed even, and the normal blue-green was replaced with purple irises and black sclera. She wasn't the same Rias Gremory that the dragon had come to hate. She was something else, something much different. Not just in appearance but aura now as well. Issei could feel a massive amount of power now circulating within the redeeded princess. A power that was dark and damn near infinite. The speculations were that Ophis gave some of her power to Rias. Now, that power has corrupted Rias and put her in this drunken state that causing her to act deranged. "Rias, what happened to you?" Issei asked, clenching his fist and glaring at the heiress. Whatever Ophis did, Issei didn't like it. It was affecting the princess to the point of her aura damn near freezing the very area around her. This wasn't anything Issei has encountered before. The devil chuckled in response, much different from her old giggle. "What do you mean, Ice?" "Nothing happened," the girl responded as she had before. "Don't lie to me, you see where that got you last time," he growled, to which Rias chuckled again. "What happened between you and Ophis? Why did she bring us here?" Rias giggled once more before it broke out into full-blown laughter. It sounded too psychotic, almost unnatural, for any sane person. It only got worse when Issei saw the wicked and crazed grin the princess displayed as she met eye to eye with the redeeded brunette again. "Ophis merely gave me enough power so I could see you again," Rias answered, receiving a hot glare from the fallen angel hybrid. "Don't be like that, this is perfect. Now that I have this chance and this power, I'll kill you before killing myself. That way, we'll be together forever," Rias announced, opening her arms out to the emptiness. Issei's eyes widened and he immediately entered a defensive position against the redeed. She saw this and pouted, folding her arms and cocking her head to the side. "Don't be like that, Ice. I want to make it quick and painless. But, if you fight back, that'll make it harder for both of us. I'd rather it be that way. I'm not letting Ophis get away with this, and if that means killing you in the process so be it," the vanguard growled as he called forth his sacred gear. Welsh Dragon Overbooster. Balance Breaker Scale Mail. The boy clad himself in his traditional armor, spreading his wings as he slammed his fists together. He glared at Rias with resolve as he prepared himself for what looked like the biggest fight of his life. Rias sighed and held out her hand, purple, red, and black magic appearing in the palm. Issei was surprised to see the change in her power of destruction, but wouldn't dwell on it long as the most dangerous fight of his life was soon closing in to the start. "Rias, think about this logically. I don't love you anymore, why go out of the way like this to attempt at killing me? And for what, blind want and affection?" he asked in the last futile attempt to bring her to her senses. Rias laughed again, clutching her stomach with her free hand. "Silly Issei. I know you're lying and I'll kill us to achieve both our dreams of finally being together, forever," she responded, laughing like a madman at the end. She was power drunk and it seemed to have made her delusional as well. Issei growled and prepared himself for battle. "Fine, we'll settle this, Rias. And this will be the last time I have to deal with your spoiled little bratty ass. BDRIAG, let's go. Right partner? Boost. Ooh." Issei glared down at Rias. There were a multitude of scratches on his armor and a small chunk of his chest plate was missing. Underneath, he looked relatively unharmed and looked to be in better condition than his enemy below him. Rias was panting hard as she tried to recover from the last collision she and Issei had. Her armor was near destroyed and her attacks proved useless against the Red Dragon Emperor. Every time they collided, Issei easily overpowered her, and no matter what she tried he was one step ahead. The few times she was lucky to land a hit were few in between, and Issei proved to be the superior fighter no matter what Rias did. The heiress looked up towards him to see him glaring with the coldest of eyes. She saw that he didn't care if he hurt her or not, but she didn't want to give up. Not when she came so close to finally getting Issei back and finally becoming hers alone. Killing him was the only way she could truly keep him to herself, but she needed the one chance, the one opportunity to get the shot she needed and to take him and her to the grave as one. All she needed was the one chance. "Issei." A multitude of shouts sounded. Both Dragon Vanguard's attentions were pulled as they turned behind Issei to notice a bright golden light appear within the endless dark void. The rift opened and the duo was shocked to see Rias' peerage and Penemu appear from the opening. Issei was more stunned as he lost all traces of what he was doing and gave his full attention to his former comrades and current girlfriend, who all smiled in relief at the sight of him and the Devil Princess. "How did you get here?" he asked, almost in disbelief. He couldn't believe that the group had actually found him and Rias so quickly without a single hint as to where they went. But with no way of telling time while inside the void, it made the brunette question how long they had actually been in there. "Great Red told us and opened a rift for us to find you," Akeno answered, tears appearing in her eyes as they had found both him and Rias. In the human world it had been 2 weeks since her king and love interest disappeared out of thin air. No one knew where either went and there were no clues in either home that could have led to where they went. It wasn't until the Apocalyptic Dragon contacted them and opened a portal for them to reach them. Luckily it worked and now the group would be able to save them. "Come on, Issei. Bring Rias and let's go home," Irina spoke up, breaking the brunette's train of thought. Issei's eyes widened at the mention of Rias and he quickly remembered where he was. As well as who he was fighting. "I can't. Rias, she's shink." The sound of metal digging into flesh filled the silence and everyone's eyes widened from the shock of the sound source. Issei looked down and saw an armored claw gauntlet through his stomach, the piece of dragon scale stained red in his blood. Slowly looking back, he came face to face with Rias, who was smiling in sadistic satisfaction. It looked as if she was tunnel vision towards him, not even noticing her servants in front of her. Her eyes were wide and crazed, almost maniacal. As if her only goal was to end his life and it was what ruled her mind and corrupted her. I did it. I got you, Issei. Now you're mine. Mine forever," she shouted in sadistic glee. Issei coughed as blood began to flow from his mouth, causing him to choke on it as he attempted to gasp. The group was left in shock and they were stunned into silence after witnessing the Devil Princess murder their friend and loved one. The very shock of it shook them to the core and no matter how hard they wanted to try a single word couldn't leave their lips. "Damn it, Rias, wake the fuck." He couldn't finish his sentence as the rapid blood loss forced him into a silent state before unconsciousness. His vision quickly began to darken and he could feel his own body growing heavy. Looking back once more, he saw Rias bury her free claw into her chest, right where her heart was. She coughed up a large amount of blood and shared eye contact with him one last time, smiling as she did so. "I told you before, I'm the only one for you and that we'd die together," she muttered. Issei still held the defiance in his eyes as she did, much to the confusion and confliction inside of Rias. She thought he would have finally accepted death, but even still he showed he would hate her even past that. Why did he hate her so? She loved him and admitted it to him, and yet he still showed her this disgust. Even in death he showed her he wouldn't allow her to have the last laugh. But why? Why wouldn't he love her back? It was a fair fight and he would die as a true warrior. Is that not what he wanted? To fight for his friends till the last breath. Why wasn't he accepting defeat? Rias twisted her hand deeper into Issei's stomach, receiving a nasty squelch in response. Issei coughed up more blood and his life began to leave him much faster. "Why are you like this? Accept my love, Issei," Rias shouted with anger now filling her. Issei slowly reached for her gauntlet, gripping it tight in his. He forced a hand out, the pain causing him to black out for a split second, but remained standing. Turning to face her, he held his stomach which was now bleeding profusely. "I told you, Rias, nothing would ever stop me from hating you, not even death." Issei then closed his eyes and fell into the empty void. It was the sight of his disappearance that broke the stunned state of those looking through the rift. They shot up to Rias, their eyes damn near popping out of their heads, as they saw Rias with tears of blood. She looked back up at them, feeling the pain, both emotionally and physically, fall on her like weights. She then too fell, the strength to hold herself up no longer possible. The group watched as they both fell before their hearts wrenched and their voices returned. "Issei, Rias." Issei slowly opened his eyes. Never before had he felt so light. It was as if he was floating in space. He felt weightless and empty, as if his very body wasn't even there. It was weird, seeing as it felt so heavy earlier. Right after Rias had. Rias. That's right. She killed him. Murder him with full intent on killing herself as well. Also they could be together in the end. It was a little funny when he first heard her say that, but now, he felt a flourish of different emotions. The pain from her gauntlet buried in his stomach was gone, but the emotional conflictions she caused were still there. Not only the past but the present as well. Even now, he was thinking back to where it all started. He wanted to see it all again, experience it all again. He was supposedly dead, so it was better to face it now, rather than let it brew in his mind any longer. Every last bit of it, since the day he awoke to her in his bed. He had to know why it turned out this way. Why she went so far for someone who downright told her he hated with a burning passion. Brag, he thought in a futile attempt. No response. So he really was dead. It was a pointless attempt after all. The dragon hybrid still had so much he wanted to do in life. So many things on his mind that he had yet to confront. He wanted to propose to Penemu, start a family after he finished his mission, hell, he still wanted to fight Vali and kick the prick's ass. As well as Sareog and Sajis. But, he died by the last setback before achieving that, and no, it wasn't Ophis. She was the least of his worries. No, he meant the insufferable narcissistic egotistical possessive annoyance of a former master, Rias Gremory. Talk about melodramatic for her to kill him. Well, at least he could say he didn't die a virgin. That was a plus. And he did lose it to the love of his life who he regretted lying to. Sadly, they wouldn't be able to stay together like they planned. Still, Issei had to wonder what was the trigger that made Rias go batshit insane. Ophis had tremendous power, but the brunette knew it didn't cause such a reaction like insanity from those whom partook in the extra boost. Maybe arrogance in their newfound strength but not borderline psychotic. Scratch that, psychological warfare altogether. So, it left the question if his former crush had become that way because of him or anyone around him. He knew the source of it, which was himself, but the argument was who actually set it off. Was it Ophis? Penemu? Any of the gang? Or was it truly his fault altogether? Now that he really thought about it, he was a little brash upon his leave and return. Was he in the right to say such things to Rias despite them not being in a relationship? No, at that time she had the right to date and have sex with whomever she wanted. On the other hand, he damn sure had the right to after he discovered what happened when she turned him into a devil. She could have saved him, or at least warned him, of Rainer's plan. Before she could murder him. But she sat back and waited only because there was a possibility that he had a sacred gear. Meaning if it wasn't for the boosted gear and both the fallen angel and devil were wrong, he'd be dead and Rias would have left him to die that fateful night. That alone was something he couldn't accept. From both of them. From both women whom he loved. And now, along with him, they were both dead. To be lied to, deceived and traumatized, it left him with little trust in anyone. But he placed it into the one he used to call master. She helped him get revenge on the one who broke his heart. She helped him save his friend, who was also set up similarly to him. She then told him she believed in him when no one else did. And when she needed his help, he saved her. And he still stayed by her side, as if he was a loyal dog. Only to be deceived once again. Then there was the Phoenix household. Riser was an arrogant, narcissistic pig of a man. He used woman to satiate his desires and, in a way, was similar to what Issei wanted to become. A man who had women lining up just to have sex with him. A very disturbing and disgusting thought to the brunette thought. He didn't care for love or affection, just a good lay and maybe some food in the process. Another thing Issei didn't see when he was still a devil was that the blonde Yakitori was also like Rias as both a king and an abuser. Oh how blind he was until that fateful night. He actually found out that Rias was far worse when it came to her canniving tactics than the blonde fried chicken ever could be. Riser took possible servants and offered them a home. He wasn't bad to them, per se, as the women never acted negatively towards him. But, similar to Rias, for him to do such things without argument, he would have had to always be in the right place at the right time to offer them something without much argument. Much like Rias. But that was Issei's opinion. He still knew little to nothing of the bastard. Now, to get to the root of this thought was Rias herself. Well, much similar to Riser, the point of the connection was how they differed. And that within itself lied how and why they thought the way they did. The blonde idiot didn't have the type of mind that plotted and did things in secret. His agenda was always known, and anything that negatively impacted others was always seen a mile away. His habit of talking in third person and announcing everything he did made that very easy. Even Issei at the time knew such things. Rias, however, was a sneaky and calculative devil. She was one who swooped in and took what she wanted without so much as a single repercussion. Never had she faced consequences for taking in the people of her peerage. And each of them was very unique, down the pawn himself. She saved Akeno, the daughter of a fallen angel leader, without so much as a declaration from the Grigori. She was handed Kaneko because her brother was too doting and hadn't once had to deal with the consequences of doing so. No, it took Issei to take on the problem. Moving on, the princess found Kiba after he escaped from the Holy Sword Project. In the middle of Europe. The former territory of the devil's #1 enemy. Hell, the damn heiress even found herself in vampire territory and saved Gasper. She was there, by herself, each and every time. Not a single time had she faced trials or tribulations. The toughest issue she had was probably convincing Roswis. But one healthcare and benefits offer later and bam, she had a powerful Valkyrie. And Zenobia, she just offered her soul to the devil, literally. The point is that everything she did was calculated and crafted to perfection. Each person she took in had reached the end of their time as they were. Every last one of them were either dying, running, or had lost their original purpose. Rias was a possessive mastermind and, while commendable, was still the worse. She couldn't even let the dragon go after all they went through. It had to come down to their death for it all to stop. And while she accepted it, it left Issei feeling disgusted and upset with her and himself. Haha, imagine even Rainer sees this. She'd probably be laughing at how ironic this is, Issei thought, trying to lighten his mood. If he was set to float in eternal darkness, might as well crack a few jokes as he reminisced. It seems you're still the same stupid idiot that I asked out, a voice suddenly spoke out to him. The brunette slowly opened his eyes and turned to see someone he hadn't seen for quite some time. Huh, I thought I consumed your soul when Great Red made me his vanguard, Issei replied calmly. He didn't look at all surprised to see her, more than anything he actually looked amused. Heh, I'm not that easy to get rid of. You know that personally, she replied with a chuckle. She seemed to have a lighter mood than her original self. Issei had to wonder if that was because of their souls merging with one another. Could that also add up to why he had such a hatred towards Rias? She was the one to kill Rainer after all, so the Fallen would still have a huge grudge against her. And that, in turn, could affect his emotions as well. So why are you here? To mock me? The brunette asked sarcastically. The fallen angel pouted and folded her arms. You know, you should be kinder to the one saving your life. It was chance that I'd even be able to, the fallen angel snapped, mumbling the last part as she looked away. And what makes you think I'll believe you on that? The hybrid asked, narrowing his eyes at her. Rainer, in return, smirked and held out her hands. A bright green glow lit up before fading to reveal something that shocked Issei. On both of the fallen angel's ring fingers, 2 silver rings with emerald gems laid. The same rings that Asia was given, her sacred gear, known as Twilight Healing. It had the capabilities to heal almost any injury for any species, whether it be devil, angel, fallen, yokai, and many more. It was a rare sacred gear, and one Rias took back from the angel after she killed her. How do you still have that? He asked in disbelief. He was shocked that she still possessed the sacred gear. After all, Asia still had her Twilight Healing. So, how? Even I don't know. Whenever I realized I had become a part of you, I also noticed that I still had possession of these things. Ironic how the items that got me killed would also be the things I'd be using to save your stupid ass, she joked with an all but hearty laugh. Her eyes lowered and she closed her eyes as if in thought. Issei looked at her for a long time. The fallen angel was right about the Twilight Healing causing her death, with drips of him in there as well. If Asia wasn't given such a powerful sacred gear, it was highly possible that Rias would have left her for dead and kept Issei from saving her. It was highly similar to his death, but the woman who once killed him had now become the one who was saving him. And with the same sacred gear he had done so much to get back. Very ironic. So, how exactly are you saving me? The hybrid questioned. Luckily for you, I'm somehow able to repair your body down to the blood cells themselves. Since that bitch of a devil didn't pierce your heart or any other vital organs, I can heal your injuries while you're still somehow alive, the fallen answered, sounding very proud of herself. At least it hadn't changed about her. She was still as arrogant as ever. Wow, I don't even think Asia has the capabilities to do something like that, Issei praised, a little shocked by the revelation. Yeah well, being with you has also increased my power. So count yourself lucky, she replied with a light blush. There was more to it, but she didn't want to stroke that idiot's ego. My whole life's been stuck on luck. Whether good or bad, the brunette chided with a shrug. Which was true. There were many cases he would have been dead but for some reason, he always found Lady Luck on his side. Maybe she liked breast-loving perverts, and when Issei tried going cold turkey, she left him to rely on himself. But that last though, silence fell upon the two. Rainer kept it healing the boy's body, while Issei was deep in thought. His eyes were closed and he seemed to have drifted off, allowing Rainer to watch him in such a calm state. Something she had never been able to see before. She had to admit, he really did change since that day on the bridge. She remembered the tiny, scrawny, whiny boy he was when she was killed in the church. The months flew by, and she watched as he trained and fought hard for the woman who had taken her place in the boy's mind. She watched as he risked his life, time and time again, for the devil he called master, and without asking much of anything in return. The usual breast groping however was something she'd expect from him. It made Rainer wonder if she could have coaxed Issei to the fallen angel's side with her seduction. She wouldn't mind his perversion if it meant he'd become so strong. Hell, she'd probably be the one constantly on him for perverted actions with the amount of power he obtained. She'd gladly have taken his virginity and so much more. Power equaled attraction, and Issei was radiating power that was like an aphrodisiac to her, as well as other female fallen angels. He'd have his own harem and then some. You know, I would have done it, Issei suddenly spoke up. It surprised Rainer, and she came out of her thoughts to see she had locked eyes with the dragons. What? She asked. I would have given up on Rias. I would have joined you in a heartbeat if you only asked, he clarified, looking up at her. Rainer saw the pain in his eyes but didn't comment on it. All she could think of was the fact she listened to Cacabiel. And for what? For both of them to die to stupidity. She could only sigh. I couldn't just come out of the blue and ask that, she replied exasperatedly. You wouldn't have believed me. Why not? If I remember correctly, you unleashed your true form before killing me, he chided back with a smirk. That was because I thought you'd die. Raynor shouted back. Issei chuckled, and the fallen angel blushed a deeper shade of red. Yes, well that may be true, you were my girlfriend however. No matter what you were, I would have accepted you, he said with a soft, regretful smile. You were the first love of my life, and I'd probably have believed anything you told me. I'd have even moved mountains if it meant staying with you. You blew up one for that ungrateful bitch, so I could probably trust you on that one. Yeah well, now you know the hell I'd go through for the ones I love, he answered with a knowing grin. One Raynor was surprised to see on his face. She could see that he had truly matured since back then. Both in body and mind. So, how much longer till you know, the brunette asked. Not much longer. Your sacred gear has been calling for you, but you were too deep into a comatose to hear him. Once I've stabilized your body, he and Great Red should be able to take care of the rest. And what about you? Raynor tilted her head to side. What do you mean? After all of this? Will I never be able to talk to you again? Would you merge with my soul completely? Would you The angel placed a finger to his lips, silencing him. When he calmed down, she smiled and giggled, very similar to Yuma when they were on that date. I told you, I'm hard to get rid of. I'll still be around, just as all the girls who have a place in your heart, she said with a playful smile. You knew, Issei replied quietly. Raynor only smirked in return as her body began to fade. The dragon, in a state of panic, reached out to grab her only for his hand to fade through. Wait, what's happening? Issei asked in shock. Nothing stupid. It's not like I'm disappearing forever, idiot, she replied with a roll of her eyes. Issei watched as she continued to fade, unable to do anything as she began to disappear from his life once more. Was there nothing he could do to change things this time? No, I won't make the same mistake again, he muttered, lowering his head. Raynor responded, barely able to hear him. I'll free you from here, Raynor. I'll find a way to bring you back, no matter what it takes. I'll free your soul from mine, I swear it. He shouted, not knowing where the words came from. They had just come out and he couldn't control himself. Where it was coming from was still a mystery, but Issei knew, in his head, that he meant every word. Why he wanted to save her, he didn't know. All he knew was that now he was going to look into every possible way to save her. To give her a second chance at life, just as Rias did to him. Meanwhile, Raynor was staring at the brunette with wide eyes. She was surprised to hear him say that but, at the same time, relieved. It showed that still, underneath all that coldness, the same knuckle-headed good guy was still there. The same one she had watched grow. And the same one she had come to love. I'll be watching then, Ice. Don't make me have to save your ass again. Issei chuckled and watched as the fallen angel finally faded away. He closed his eyes as he could feel a light slowly enveloping him. It was weird, the feeling of being pulled from a comatose state. And by the woman he once thought he would loathe forever. But, it turned out he still loved her. After all that time, he still loved her. He was hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. Nothing's really changed about me, he muttered under his breath. But Issei slowly opened his eyes, and they flashed bright green as he grinned widely. But from now, I will change. Not just for me but to save you as well, Raynor. Issei. Issei. Drake shouted at his partner. The dragon had been screaming for him, but the brunette had never responded. After the brunette lost his consciousness, a miracle happened when Great Red broke Ophis' barrier and grabbed the teenager. While surprised, Drake appreciated the save very much and couldn't express his full gratitude to the dragon god. Since then, the sacred gear had done his best to try and help the boy. But with the severity of the injury, it was impossible for him to heal such a wound. Not even Great Red could do something in time to save the boy's life. So both were left to watch as the boy who impressed them and made them really feel something inside once again, slowly die from blood loss. That was until a green light enveloped the large wound. It would leave both dragons shocked and in disbelief as the large wound began to slowly heal. Blood cells, tissues, ruptured organs, all of them were slowly being repaired to a point where Issei had become stable. As soon as the opportunity came, Great Red began to give the brunette his own flesh once more. It was his own, so it was very easy to replace the parts Issei lost. While it closed a wound and strengthened the boy's body, it also refilled his magic reserves that would allow Drake to finish off anything that Great Red was unable to. Such as internal organs of even blood cells. Issei. Issei. Drake shouted at his partner. He tried calling for him once more now that the boy was in a safer state. Drake, he muttered. Both dragons never felt more relieved to hear the voice of the brunette. Great Red actually had never felt such an emotion, and Drake couldn't remember the last time he felt that way. Issei. They exclaimed simultaneously. Where am I? The brunette asked, still with his eyes closed. We're here with Great Red in the dimensional gap. Drake answered. And what of Rias? He asked without hesitation. Silence fell between the three powerful beasts. Issei knew that Drake and Great Red were holding back as neither wanted to speak. Did they think the results were too bare to tell him? Did they think he'd freak out or be upset? I didn't save her. She attacked you, and I wasn't going to waste my time on the one who tried to kill my hatchling. The true dragon answered firmly. Good, I didn't expect you to, Issei answered, much faster than the dragons expected. Hey, are you sure about that, Issei? I could feel your conflictions with your feelings towards her. Well, you were unconscious, Drake replied with concern. Issei sat up but didn't open his eyes. He stayed silent for some time, a time in which the dragons wondered what he was thinking. Exactly what happened in the boy's mind while he was comatose. Red-sama, he suddenly said. Yes, Issei? Could you make a new body? All the way from scratch? Issei asked, his eyes still closed. The dragons were confused by the weird question. Was the boy asking for another new body? I suppose it's within my power. But there would need to be a soul for it. You'd also have to describe the body desired, or, at best, give me an image. Issei smiled softly. He slowly opened his eyes to reveal two violet orbs. He could feel Rainer's soul deep within him and couldn't help but chuckle at both his thoughts and Great Red's words. As well as the fact that the angel's words were true. She truly was a stubborn one to get rid of. I have a soul. And another guardian for you, if you'd accept her, he said with confidence. It confused the dragons further, but the brunette was caught up in his own thoughts to notice. It seemed his answer was already given. He thought it'd take longer, but he didn't have to waste a second. An advantage to being the vanguard of one who scared God. Issei, what of Rias? Is she the one who you wish to craft a new body for? Drake asked. No, Drake. Rias is not someone I choose to bring back. She's dead and I wanted to stay that way. The emotions and conflictions you felt earlier were for a past love interest of mine, but I never said it was Rias, Issei answered cryptically with his smile widening just slightly. Then who exactly do you mean, my hatchling? Great Red asked. The violet orbs flashed golden, then brown, then violet, before settling on emerald green. Sorry Drake, I forgot you were asleep when I actually loved her. And Great Red, I never told you the full story about her. But I'm pretty sure both of you know that there's only one soul who I possess within me besides my own. Both dragons thought for a bit before coming to a quick realization. Surziches, there's got to be a way to find them. Azazel shouted at the hologram. You know just as much as I do that it's near impossible to. The dimensional gap is too big, the redeeted devil replied with obvious disdain. So what? We can't leave them in there, not when there's a chance they're still alive, Azazel continued to press. I'm sorry Azazel, but it's really hard to do anything in this situation, the man muttered with his eyes casted downward. The seraph looked at the holographic devil with rage. It was a sudden boiling inside as he glared at the Lucifer. Never before had Azazel been more furious with the faction leader. How can you say that? Your own sister is stuck in there. What kind of brother are you? He shouted with clenched fist. I'm horrible, I know. But as I've said, I can't drop everything and search for her when the chances are really low, Surziches said. He sounded sorrowful, and the pain etched in his body stature and eyes was more than enough to convince the angel. He didn't want to admit it, but the chances of finding Issei or Rias were very slim. Even more so of finding them both. You knew this would happen, the governor accused. No, I hoped something like this wouldn't happen, the redeed quickly replied. So you had speculation of it? I did. Which is why I've come to terms that something like this would happen, he muttered in response. Azazel looked at the devil appalled. Never had Surziches looked so weak and useless in the angel's eyes. You know, a leader can't be biased to his people, but when he's so blind that he abandons his own family, it goes to show he's nothing but a coward. With that, Azazel ended the connection before leaning back against his desk. The researcher grit his teeth and mustered all of his will not to cry. His heart hurt and it had been a long time since he felt something like this. The Red Dragon Emperor had grown on him and their relationship was a very interesting one to Azazel. It was one along the lines of father and son, but it also had slight traces of friendship and, possibly, equals as well. The brunette was a special type of character who had the personality to change others for the better. As well as always improving himself. He was unique, and the Grigori leader could say he was happy to have known him. Azazel, a new voice spoke up. The man turned to see Penemu walking in, looking as hopeless and worried as him. What did Surziches say? She asked hesitantly. The woman was fearing for her lover and the possibility of his death. That much was very obvious to the faction leader. After witnessing what that redeeded woman did, Penemu's heart sank as she watched a life leave Issei's eyes. To say she was horrified was an understatement as the man who gave her life meaning fell into the endless void of the dimensional gap. There's nothing he can do, Penemu. Neither can I. I'm really sorry, the seraph answered with dread. A small fragment of hope left the angel's eyes and a little strength she had left her body. She fell to the floor and placed a hand over her mouth to muffle the oncoming sobs. Tears flowed like a faucet as the final barrier broke and the painful emotions took hold. Hearing those words were the last thing she wanted to. It was like she was dying, as the brunette had become her everything. The reason to get up, smile, laugh, and dream. The strong, kindred man she was deeply in love with had a strong connection with her, and now that he was lost in a near-infinite space, it felt severed. How could she cope with that when she watched his death happen before her very eyes? As the light left them and his body vanished into the nothing. It was the scariest thing she could imagine witnessing, and of all people to do it, it was the one woman Penemu should have had her eyes on the entire time. Azazel walked over to her and placed a hand on the fellow fallen's shoulder. She was hurt much more than he was and needed the comfort more than anything. He knew she loved Issei and actually wanted to start a life with him. He would have given her the opportunity to and would have looked forward to becoming a godfather if they'd allowed. It was those expectations he had for the duo, but he, along with many others, let his guard down and allowed something like this to happen. The general could only blame himself for his blunder of allowing the brunette to face Rias on his own. Thump. Ouch, Red Sama did that on purpose. He really didn't. He's never even seen the human world. Two voices filled the leader's ears. Their mourning had ceased momentarily as the sounds of the two newcomers were very familiar to them. One of the voices they knew all too well and the other was one they hadn't heard in such a long time. It made them question if it was real or if their minds were playing tricks on them. Finally deciding to see who it was, the fallen angels turned around and couldn't believe their eyes. Standing before them, two people they presumed, one they knew, dead were right in front of them. When the duo noticed the two angels, they joined in on the staring between both sides. Issei? Penemu asked in disbelief. The brunette smiled warmly and nodded. Rainer Azazel choked, sounding like he'd just seen a ghost. The girl he once knew had changed since the last time he saw her. She still had the same porcelain skin and long hair as he remembered. She even had the same body stature and stance she used to do when facing him. But now, two dragon wings sat on her back, exactly like Issei's, and her original skimpy outfit was now replaced by crimson dragon scales, morphed into a one-piece. Azazel-sama, Rainer replied with a bow. The new hybrid's emotions towards the man had changed since she began witnessing his antics through the brunette's eyes. Seeing how pervy and lazy he was at times, she actually questioned what made her fall for him in the first place. While he was still strong, she could see he had many holes and that his mind wasn't fully on feeling anything towards the opposite gender. So, now having matured a little, she could say she respected the governor general but no longer had affection for him. While weird to face him again, after seeing how he was behind the scenes, she felt awkward facing him as if nothing happened. "Seems someone's happy you're back," the brunette whispered to her. The hybrid merely folded her arms and hummed questioningly but with sarcasm laced over it. The leaders looked back and forth between the two dragons in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes or their ears as the duo before them conversed naturally. Neither of them should have been standing directly in front of them, but somehow both were. Rainer still shocking the leaders because of her revival. How are both of you here?" Azazel asked the two. Issei chuckled before he jabbed a finger to his partner. "She saved my life, ironically. So, I returned a favor and saved hers. That shouldn't be possible." "I thought you said you absorbed her soul," Azazel replied in complete disbelief. Both dragons glanced at each other, sympathetic looks in both of their eyes. It seemed they really had forgiven each other as neither seemed upset by the statement. "I thought so too, but she's really stubborn, it seems. Some fragment of her soul stayed separate and, with it, I had Great Red create a new body for her and set the soul free," Issei answered. The two fallen angels were still dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. What they were seeing. It sounded ridiculous, as if it was a fairy tale, but with fabrications that shouldn't be possible. But there the two dragons stood. Their Rainer was someone who was confirmed dead. It was unreal but shockingly real at the same time. It was truly unexplainable. The angels couldn't fathom what to say or how to say it due to their minds still trying to understand what it was. "What of Rias? What of Ophis?" Penemu asked in her confusion. The brunette's gaze casted downward. The mentioning of his former master and the false dragon god darkened his mood immediately and he felt his blood start to boil. He quickly calmed it as the positives were enough to conquer his negative emotions, but their very names were still something that shook him to the core. Rias is dead, her body is probably scattered within the gap by now. Ophis, however, is being hunted by Red Sama as we speak, he answered slowly. The fallen angel's eyes widened at the sudden reveal. Great Red is hunting her? That's a first, Azazel noted, whispering the last part to himself. Red Sama has never had a reason to fight her up until now. However, after the turmoil she placed me through, he had enough of her annoying attempts and has planned to eradicate her and anyone associated with the Infinity Dragon. The brunette's explanation made shivers run down Azazel and Penemu's spine. They never heard of the dragon god getting so upset and could only wonder of his power when enraged. But a positivity from the news was that Chaos Brigade would fall faster than they would have predicted. Having the dream dragon god on their side was a huge advantage. Still, would the dragon god be enough to defeat Ophis and all of the terrorist group? Oh, and one more thing. Great Red said, under all circumstances, everyone stay out of his way and don't try to find him, Raynor said, to which Issei nodded. That only made the leaders fear his power more. But they would spread the word to the other factions as they finally headed out to the war against the terrorists. And while it took the death of a princess and the near fall of a dragon, it seemed that peace may finally be attainable through a being who didn't care for anyone or anything but himself. So what do you plan to do now, Issei? Azazel asked, finally having taken in all the information since the brunette's return. There was no hesitation as a smile appeared on the boy's face. I plan on starting a family with my lover, he answered as he faced Penemu. The woman, in turn, smiled back as tears filled her eyes. This time out of happiness. Azazel approved of the answer before turning to his former pupil. And you, Raynor? I shall forever be by Issei's side. Another response without pause. One that made the brunette smile and the other two look surprised before silently agreeing to it. Was she really the same Raynor they knew? Or had she grown up? Odd how it took death to make her do such a thing. Issei simply held his partner's hand and they shared a happy gaze. The brunette silently wished it was like this from the beginning, but then again, none of his life-changing experiences would have happened and that would have changed the story. So, maybe being lied to and killed by the Ravenet was one of the better things to happen to him. Maybe the betrayal was what he needed to become who he is. But whatever happened was another story. Now, he could say he reached his happy ending, despite the gut-wrenching deaths he came close to again and again. As well as the heart-wrenching turmoil that came with it. After all of it, he achieved his goal in the end. Not to be harem king. But to find love in his life and to defeat that which held him down. But who knew that in the end, they would coincide and defeating his nightmares meant saving him as well. He had to admit, he really was strange. But that's what made him Issei Hyoudou. Issei Hyoudou, the Red Dragon Emperor who broke all the rules. Has a nice ring to it, nah. Wake up, Gremory. CHH, what a worthless investment. She went against my orders and couldn't even kill the boy. It'll take a lot more work. NNN. So you're awake. Where am I? Ophis. Rias Gremory, you've failed me, the dragon said. It was monotone, but the heiress could still hear her disappointment. I'm not dead. No, be grateful. If I hadn't found you, Great Red might have. And he would have been sure to finish the job. Rode looked down in shame. She was lucky to have survived. But she wanted to be dead. Dead with Issei. At least then she'd have some happiness. Knowing that her and her love would be together in the end. Wait, if she's alive, then what of her destined lover? Wait, Ophis. What of Issei? She asked, looking up to the god. The Lolita hesitated to answer. For once she held her tongue in a moment of uncertainty. Rias was confused from the moment of silence, not sure if her silence meant he was dead or alive. It was eating at her as she craved for the answer, good or bad, the more time passed. Issei Hyoudou is alive. As if a wave washed over, Rias felt every fiber of her being relax. She breathed a sigh of relief and rested a hand over her chest. She could feel a warm feeling inside as she learned her lover survived as well. It meant she failed again, but this time she was more than happy to. She didn't want to live if it meant she was without Issei. But now, knowing he wasn't dead, she had another opportunity. But, would it be to kill him? Or would it be to make amends? If only the answer was so simple. Issei hated her. She knew that. But that didn't stop her from loving him. For wanting to be with him. And it didn't stop her from trying to move on to the afterlife with him. So what was she to do? Rias knew that she'd be the last person he'd want to see. In fact, she wouldn't be surprised if he attempted to kill her again. There had to be something. Some way for her to be with him once more. But what was she to do when she knew he'd have no remorse for taking her life? Ophis, exactly how did I survive? I pierced my heart, I shouldn't be alive. The Ouroboros dragon floated next to her, with her usual blank expression. Another moment of silence passed before she spoke. I gave you a new heart. A piece of myself that reconstructed your entire body to perfect health. Ria's eyes widened in shock. Does this mean I'm like you? No. You can still die and you're not as strong as I. But you are much harder to kill. I see. Is there anything else? The dragon nodded her head. Yes, you are able to morph as I can. As well as summon snakes. Rias was once again taken by surprise. She could change her appearance to whatever she wished. As well as summon snakes similar to her god. This opened many doors for her, many doors. But first, she had to harness these powers. If she went as she was, Issei would kill her instantly. If not him, then that bitch fallen angel with him. The heiress would need to train. She would have to become much stronger to defeat anyone who stood between her and her king. Even that pesky True Red. With her mind set, she turned to the dragon, a bright fire in her eyes. Ophis, I must become stronger. Strong enough to kill even Great Red. The god expected her claim, but not towards the dragon of dreams. For the first time she smiled. One as vicious as Rias the moment she drove the claw through Issei's chest. One that didn't match her face at all and only made it look more sinister. And just as fast as it came, she soon returned to her emotionless expression. Only making her seem just as crazed as her vanguard. Yes. Let's begin immediately. For this shall take many years. Rias was unwavering. However many it takes. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends.